A widowed farmer, Jacob Miller, faces an impossible conflict when a group of tribal warriors accuse him of kidnapping a revered elder, Lone Hawk. At the center stands Red Feather, a fierce leader whose mistrust fuels a dangerous standoff born from years of pain and betrayal. But Jacob's unexpected kindness and a hidden truth turn the tides, revealing a deeper conspiracy threatening them all. Just wait until you see how this tense struggle unfolds and why justice ultimately triumphs in the end. Jacob Miller lived a quiet life on the edge of the Kansas plains, where endless fields stretched beneath wide, open skies. The farm had been his home for years, but since the day his wife passed away 2 years earlier, the silence in the house grew heavier. Each morning Jacob rose before the sun, not out of joy, but from a sense of duty to the land that had sustained them both. His days were marked by simple routines: checking fences, tending to the crops, feeding the animals. These tasks grounded him, a steady rhythm that kept loneliness at bay. Yet, beneath the steady work, a part of Jacob remained untouched, quietly aching for the laughter and warmth that once filled the farmhouse. One crisp morning, just as the first pale light touched the horizon, Jacob set out to inspect the perimeter fences. The air was cool, still holding the quiet hush of night's retreat. As he moved along the wooden posts, his eyes caught something unusual near a copse of trees, a figure lying motionless beneath a scattering of dry leaves. Approaching cautiously, Jacob's breath caught in his throat. There, barely conscious and breathing shallowly, was an elderly man with deeply weathered skin and sharp, wise eyes partially closed. The man wore the traditional clothing of the Kiowa tribe, marked by symbols that Jacob had only seen in old photographs and heard about in stories his late wife used to tell him. Without hesitation, Jacob knelt beside the elder. The man was badly injured, his clothes torn and stained. Jacob's hands trembled slightly, but he moved with care, tearing strips from his own shirt to bind wounds and stop the bleeding. In that moment, Jacob felt something awaken inside him, a thread of connection reaching back through time to the stories of friendship, struggle, and resilience that his wife had cherished. Lifting the elder with as much strength as he could muster, Jacob carried him back to the farmhouse. Inside, he laid him gently on a bed, fetched clean water, and prepared a place to rest. The house, once heavy with sorrow, now held a fragile warmth. For the first time in many seasons, Jacob felt a quiet hope flicker in his chest, a hope born not from his own plans or desires, but from the simple act of kindness extended to a stranger in need. As the morning sun rose higher, painting the fields in gold, Jacob sat beside the elder, silently promising himself that this unexpected encounter might be the beginning of something new, not just for the man he had saved, but for his own heart as well. News of Lone Hawk's sudden disappearance and his unexpected arrival at Jacob Miller's farmhouse spread swiftly through the Kiowa and neighboring tribes. The winds carried whispers and rumors like wildfire across the plains, reaching every village and camp by the time the sun began to rise. By dawn, the peaceful solitude Jacob had once known was shattered. 7 tribal groups, their banners and symbols fluttering in the morning breeze, formed a formidable circle around the farm. Horses stamped impatiently on the earth, and wary eyes scanned every direction, leaving no path open for escape or retreat. At the center of this formidable gathering stood Red Feather, the Kiowa's respected and fierce warrior leader. His presence commanded attention, not merely because of his stature, but for the years of wisdom and strength etched into the lines of his face. His gaze, sharp and unwavering, was fixed on Jacob as he stepped forward from the farmhouse steps. "Why do you hold our elder against his will?" Red Feather's voice was steady, but carried the weight of deep suspicion and restrained anger. Around him, the assembled tribes echoed the sentiment in their silent stares. Men and women who had inherited generations of hardship and distrust toward settlers like Jacob. Jacob's heart pounded in his chest, confusion clouding his thoughts. He opened his mouth to speak, but words stumbled awkwardly at first. "I didn't take him," Jacob insisted, voice earnest. "Lone Hawk was hurt, and I helped him. I meant no harm, no offense. I only wanted to ease his pain." The tension in the air thickened, heavier than the morning fog that still clung to the fields. Years of history, painful memories of broken promises and conflict, hung between them like an invisible barrier. No simple explanation could erase decades of mistrust overnight. Red Feather's eyes narrowed, his expression unreadable. "We do not accuse lightly," he said after a moment's pause. "But trust is earned, not given. You must understand what your presence here means to us. This is not just about one man. It is about the respect and the history that binds us to this land." The farm, once a place of quiet routine, had become the stage for a delicate standoff. The air vibrated with a fragile calm, as if the very earth held its breath, waiting for what would come next. Jacob felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. He knew the path ahead would require more than words. It would demand patience, humility, and perhaps a courage deeper than he had ever known. As the sun climbed steadily into the sky, casting long shadows over the land, Jacob found himself drawn deeper into a story far greater than he had ever imagined. The tension that had gripped the morning began to shift, revealing layers of history, pain, and secrets buried beneath the surface. It was during a quiet moment, away from the watchful eyes of the assembled tribes, that Lone Hawk finally spoke. His voice was weak but resolute, carrying the weight of years spent guarding a dangerous truth. "There are forces at work," the elder explained, his gaze steady despite his frailty. "A rival faction seeks to shatter the peace we have fought so hard to build. They tried to silence me, to set fire to the fragile trust between our people and the settlers." Jacob listened carefully, the pieces falling into place. Lone Hawk had survived an assassination attempt, a calculated move meant to ignite conflict and seize control of the land. His escape was no mere chance. It was a spark that threatened to plunge the region back into chaos. Jacob's heart tightened with a mix of fear and resolve. His simple act of kindness, bandaging wounds, offering shelter, had unwittingly placed him in the eye of a storm he barely understood. The delicate balance between friendship and hostility now rested precariously on his shoulders. Red Feather, watching the exchange, was a man torn. Loyalty to his people urged him toward suspicion and retribution. Yet the truth in Lone Hawk's words stirred something deeper, a recognition of a common enemy who sought only to divide and conquer. In that moment, Jacob recalled the gentle wisdom of his late wife, whose dreams had often wandered to hopes of reconciliation and unity. Her vision, once distant and fragile, now seemed within reach, flickering like a flame in the growing light. Determined to protect Lone Hawk, and perhaps in doing so, to honor his wife's memory, Jacob resolved to stand firm against the gathering shadows. The path ahead would be fraught with danger and doubt, but within it lay a chance for healing, if only they dared to seize it. As the night wore on, the tension that had gripped the farmstead began to shift into something more fragile, an opening, faint but real, for understanding. Jacob stood face to face with Red Feather beneath the pale glow of the moon, their eyes reflecting the weight of history, pain, and a shared longing for peace. Jacob spoke quietly, but with unwavering conviction. He told Red Feather how his care for Lone Hawk was born not from betrayal, but from a deep respect for life, and a hope that the wounds of the past might one day heal. He shared the memories of his late wife, who had dreamed of a future where their worlds could meet not in conflict, but in trust and cooperation. Red Feather's fierce gaze softened as the truth settled between them. The elder's survival was a chance, not a curse, a chance to expose those who sought only division and destruction. Together they pieced together the conspiracy behind the assassination attempt, unmasking the shadowy figures who thrived on discord. By the first light of dawn, the blockade that had held the farm in its grip was lifted. The 7 tribes, once united by suspicion and anger, stepped back, allowing the promise of a new day to break free. Jacob watched as farmers and tribal leaders gathered, no longer as adversaries, but as neighbors willing to listen and learn from one another. Conversations began, tentative but sincere, about respect, coexistence, and a shared stewardship of the land they all called home. For Jacob, the journey that began in loneliness and loss had transformed him deeply. He felt the steady strength of hope rise within, fueled by a commitment to honor his wife's vision, one where healing was possible, and where the dawn brought not just light, but a beginning.